Hello and welcome. We're here, Progress 24 at the MEA SRHR Symposium. Today we're going to be talking about feminist insights on countering backlash against SRHR. We're here in beautiful Nairobi with my colleagues. I'm going to give them each an opportunity to introduce themselves, starting from there.
So hi everyone, my name is Oliver.
Based in Kenya, but I work with Y Plus
Global, as that means support for Harvest Fund Grant. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Naneza Motweta from UNAIDS Botswana, working as an Equality and Rights for All officer and also responsible for community support.
Hello everybody, my name is Yumna Hattas and I work for Frontline AIDS. I'm the Senior Advisor for SRHR and Gender and I'm based in Pretoria, South Africa.
Hi everyone, my name is Festus Kisa. I work with Q Initiative as the Executive Director and a global member and a board member of the Men Engaged Global Alliance.
Great. So we want to talk about feminist insights on countering backlash. And I think a good place to start is what are the forms of backlash and opposition that exist against SRHR and how do they affect populations, but more so the marginalized community? When we say backlash, what are we talking about? When we say opposition, what is that animal?
I wanted to start this because there's something that's pending at the moment.
Yes.
November we have the US elections. And I don't know if you all know the Trump administration, they might come back in. And with the Trump administration we had, the global gag rule. And the global gag rule was an indictment on our SRHR rights, and in particular abortion. And there is, when we say abortion, no abortion services was covered by PEPFAR. And with the global gag rule, we were not allowed to even have anyone working in this space in that to be funded, right? Now the global gag rule might come back, and it's as close as November.
Yeah.
What is the impact that we're going to have now? In addition to it, there's a LGBTI gag rule that's going to be coming with it. And this whole Project 2025 that he has planned. And it is, that is a monstrosity of a document. It directly speaks about violating our rights. So for us, I think immediately for me, that's a big thing because how are our partners who are PEPFAR funded preparing for this, especially those that are offering SRHR services. For me, that's an important impending point for me.
Yeah, I think you can go next. So I live off of Mombasa, and in Kenya, that was where the anti-LGBT movement started here in Kenya. And what that meant is people had to go on a lockdown, like a self-induced lockdown, because everywhere it was not safe. Everywhere was chaos, people are being beaten up, people are being evicted from their houses. And in the long run, the repercussion of that was people stopped going to access services because DICs were closed down. So the one single place where you could get a service was closed down because of the anti-movement. So what did that mean? It meant that queer people in Mombasa could not get the basic of services because they could not go to that place where they feel that they're comfortable to get services. And every time we push for integration, this integration, that, and we saw demonstrations going all the way to public health facilities. So the ones that with some of the service providers,
they had also went then they were like, no, we don't want these people coming to these spaces. So what that meant was a lot of people ended up, the STI rate actually went up, there's even proof of that. The STI rate went up. Also adherence by itself was affected because of the psychological trauma that came with that. So personally, I feel that was a very tough time, still is to date, but at least with the court ruling that they cannot hold demonstrations, at least it's quite okay, but it's not okay.
Another form of backlash would be misinformation and disinformation.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of SRHR, there's misinformation about access to comprehensive sexual education, where people are saying that if you teach CSE, you're encouraging promiscuity. There's misinformation around LGBTQ persons. There's disinformation about body autonomy. So there's just a lot of, and we see that even in media campaigns, where you'd host a space on X to talk about different things, but then before you meet, there's a hashtag that has been paid that is pushing your agenda away. So it's becoming very difficult to provide spaces for people to share opinions, because even the spaces that you've provided, they're being infiltrated by the anti-gender, anti-rights people. So, and it's also very many people. Access to information is becoming difficult unless you're using internet, and we also know internet is still a challenge. So there is just many people are not getting the right information, and it's contributing to the rise in anti-gender popularity.
Yeah, and I think again, just to add on what my colleagues have alluded to, we are very sure and it's very visible that donor funding is going down. Also, domestic funding is also going down. And we still have population groups that still do not have access to services, quality services. And we're already talking integration, but they don't have the bare minimum to access services. I'm thinking of the young people who have been crying for safe spaces and youth-friendly services, but if donor funding and domestic funding are going down, I'm getting so scared that we are not going to realize youth-friendly services and risk in a way that our young people are not going to access services. And we know that hard hit by the epidemic, the AGYW, adolescent girls and young women, they still have the majority when it comes to the numbers, prevalence rates. But when it comes to services that are relevant to our young people, we are still not there as countries. But if donor funding is going down, it's a big backlash. And also what she mentioned regarding abortion, and we have some agencies that are not funding organizations that are dealing with this issue, but we know it's happening in our countries and we do not have money to implement those services. And if donor funding is saying, I'm not going to fund you because you are concentrating on these things, we are not serving our communities, we are not addressing the needs of our communities, and that is a big risk for us. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think you're very right. We need to start thinking more broadly about where we are and how the different facets affect the different marginalized groups. And also to start having those difficult conversations about the politics of the world. What does this global political environment mean for human rights moving forward? Because if one group is going to not have access, over time it will get easier and easier to take away the rights of other groups as we move forward. Yeah. So how can we use feminist principles and the intersectionality approach to guide strategies on countering backlash?
Well, I think one of the things that we need to acknowledge is, and we had this conversation earlier, is that feminism isn't about men and women hating each other.
Yes, true.
It's all about who we are as individuals and where we find ourselves. And that's what intersectionality speaks about, your lived experience. What do you encounter every day, and what are your needs, and how can we approach and make that easier for you, especially when your rights are being violated. And I think from an anti-rights perspective, this is where the anti-rights movement has really come in and used it to their advantage. They've gone to the communities, they've spoken to the religious leaders, they've spoken to some of our own political leaders, and they've gone right onto the value systems. And that's where we all sit, because if we sit here today and there's something happening, we're in agreement with it, but something about that value isn't maybe attached to us. Yeah. And that's where they've gone. And so when we're using feminist principles, it's important to realize that when we work with the individual, we meet them at their level, their context. That's where we start. Don't come in guns blazing, because you're going to push them away. And that's where the anti-rights movement has won already. You go in at the level that they are at, and you work with them slowly but surely, one issue at a time. And through that process, by co-creating solutions to the problems, you co-creating it with the community, you start working and implementing the solutions. They get that lived experience. They start seeing what misinformation has been passed through, and how that hasn't been happening. You're reflecting the non-truth that's coming out. And through that, you are then able to say, okay, you see, the solution we came up together is working. So let's start challenging some of those very patriarchal value systems and see, look, it's working, right? So let's work together. And so, a feminist approach is really about coming together as a community and working together. And that is where the anti-rights movement has gotten us. And we need to hit back. We really have to hit back. And so what is that? What does that mean? It's coming together and building that wall against that tsunami that they say they are bringing on us. So that's just what I think, really.
And also being holistic in our approaches, not to only focus on face value issues or interventions. We need to go down and address social and cultural issues, as well as structural issues that are hindering access to services. It's not a fight. If we are designing programs to address women, and we are designing programs to address men, they should be interlinkages, because we know our interventions, some of them are primarily meant for women, but we know the secondary target audience will be the men and other structures like the traditional leadership, service providers and others. So we need to be comprehensive and holistic in designing our programs so that nothing comes as an afterthought. If something comes as an afterthought, then that somebody is not going to own to the initiative that is being implemented for another target audience. The same thing applies to young people. If you are going to design programs that are primarily targeting young people, you need to also bring other players to the table so that they reinforce whatever behavior you want to change amongst the young people. So we need to be holistic and comprehensive in our programming from the onset, not to keep on adding and adding and adding. Of course, we can be incremental, but we need from the onset to ensure that everyone else is involved. Like she said, co-creating so that our programs are able to address so many issues at once. Like they normally say, killing so many birds with one stone. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think I really liked the way you talked about feminism. Because most of the times when we hear feminism, feminist, we're thinking, oh, those men haters. Yes, but to have that understanding that feminism is really about people and intersectionality is about meeting people where they have those interconnected vulnerabilities or privileges. So in program design, how do we target those multifaceted vulnerabilities? How do we work with the multifaceted privileges to make sure that our design is holistic? And the community bit thing, we need to walk the journey together across our different vulnerabilities and privileges to ensure that access is a lived reality for the majority. So I want to talk a bit about the role of young people. What is the role of young people in advancing the feminist agenda, especially for achieving SRH or outcomes for all?
I don't know, maybe I can touch something on it. So yesterday I was having a conversation with someone about what the future looks like for young people. And for me, it's an exciting space because we're getting fresh ideas, we're getting fresh thoughts on how are some of the ways we can approach things, because people are coming in now. It's the era of AI, it's the era of technology, it's the era of putting things out there through social media. So I believe now it's easy, and we have platforms of how we can target our audiences and also know how to package what the problem is. You know, instead of, for example, we've always lied behind like one title. If it's HIV, just HIV and you leave it there. But now we want to break down to how does HIV affect me as a queer person? How does it affect you as a queer woman? How does it affect you as a single mother? How does it affect you as an AGYW? Also living in rural settlement, living in urban settlement, like that, like going to a point of designing programs to fit specifically people instead of generalizing, because generalizing has always made people, especially the marginalized community, end up being left out. But it's time now. We are in an era where everything is being brought to light. This is what I face as a queer person living with HIV. This is what I face as a queer woman who has a child. These are the things I'm going through, and I believe this is like the best time to be alive when it comes to fighting for the good cause. Yes.
Thank you.
To add to that, I think the role of young people will be to disrupt, because even the way we organize in civil society, it's very hierarchical. It's very it's like some order we follow. But what I recognize now is that young people we will not things are not, it's not business as usual, so
Yeah.
we'll do things differently.
Yeah.
And I think disrupting is also part of, question it, is part of, saying that this system has not worked for us, so let's find something that works for us. I think the other thing the young people can do is to commune. In the past, CSOs and other organizations, we felt the only place we can have that. Committing ourselves to educate and so that we have, and whatever form that education looks like, whatever form learning is, we are using this information such that we are arguing with facts and figures. We are coming to the space from a point of knowledge as opposed to just live realities alone. So I think that's the role that people can play. And continue to, and I want to say bold, but also just having people at the center. Because some of the times when you're designing programs, you think of the program outputs, designs, but just we don't center people. So if we center the people, then we are bound to have better results than what you've done in the past.
I belong to the other cohort, but I so much love our young people nowadays, our African young people that are bringing Africa to the world. That's what I'm happy about nowadays. In Africa we have been so submissive, especially as women, especially as some populations that have been left behind. We have been hiding and looking at people just enjoying everything and anything, and we have been hiding, not having voices, but we see our young people not being afraid to come to the table and say, this is me, I'm HIV positive, this is me, I'm MSM, this is me, I'm a sex worker, and I need space and I need services and all that. So I'm thinking, like he says, he covered everything. They are bringing Africa to the world, and they want to claim what is theirs. Yeah. So
We're not nice anymore.
No.
You're not playing nice.
Yeah.
You always used to, and I don't know, it's the African upbringing, like, be humble. You're supposed to not say a lot, but now, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
This is what is happening to me, you have to know.
Yes. I really like that. The whole idea that we can't afford to be nice anymore about the things that affect us and the things that kill us. We have to come to the table. And where the seats are not made available, we bring our own seats to the table. So that whole angle of disruption, how can we do development work differently? Centering the community and centering people and considering all the nuances. I'm HIV positive, I'm divorced, I'm a single mom, I've got 5 kids, uneducated, unemployed. So being very disruptive, but also so considerate of the nuances of all the people that we bring everyone along. That is really, really brilliant. And I do agree with you, Oliver. It's a brilliant and electrifying moment to be alive. So maybe we can talk about how can we improve on building partnerships between feminist organizations, civil society groups, policymakers to contribute to improving outcomes for SRHR. What do you envision as these partnerships to look like in that disruptive frame?
I see it as working with people you've not worked with before, because we have always listed our partners as who look a certain type of way, have access to a particular kind of money and so on. But I think it's important for us to look at the creative space, working with how do you work with media, how do you work with, how do you just design systems in our content, how do you work with universities or researchers, how do you work with scholars to change mindsets? Because I feel like we have been talking to each other for such a long time. So we come to a space, all of us know about the issue, we know what should be done, but we have the money. And then now that funding is shrinking, we're like, is there someone else who can do this work? Is there someone else who can push our story? And there's a push to like how do we shift norms as opposed to, so that when we're working with the policy change, which might take a while, but how do we also shift norms with the people back at home, the neighbors? How do you work with parents, teachers, association? So I think it's just thinking outside the box in terms of what partnership should look like, and also not looking at resources as money, because other people can support us, other people can help us in the work, they just don't have the money. But how do we decolonize our thinking around resourcing and supporting our work? So I think that's one of the ways we can do that.
I can add something. There's one thing that, because as you say, we've had conversations for a while, but I feel now it's the time where we hold our partners accountable. You said you are our ally. Why are we not seeing you when you go to the front lines? Where are you? We need to speak as one. You said you are backing us up when it comes to maybe certain conversations. Then when time comes to speak about it,
you're nowhere to be seen. So I think it's also high time, like, if you're a partner, we are going the whole way. You're not here for the cameras. We are going the whole way.
Not for numbers.
Yeah, and also not for numbers.
Yes.
We need accountability from your side. You say, maybe you're the police, you say, yes, we've sensitized you, you've been with us. Then when something comes up, you're the same person coming to arrest me at the demonstrations, maybe when I'm calling out for my rights. What is this? Yes, because what are we doing then? Is it that we are wasting resources to do that? Was it that we're wasting resources to create those partnerships? Because if you're partners, it's the whole way, or no way at all. Yes.
I like it.
Yeah.
We need to. Oh yeah.
No, I just wanted to add to what they were both saying. It's just that, the opposition, I want to bring it back to the opposition.
Yeah.
They have one voice.
Yes.
No matter who they are,
Yes.
they're saying the same thing,
Yes.
right? And they've targeted our religious leaders and they've come in with our morals and values.
Yeah.
But their modus operandi is divide and conquer.
Yes.
And they get it right. So if we go in guns blazing, for example, we divided ourselves already from that opportunity that we had. So I think what's important is collective action, where we come together and leverage off each other. So if you're good at media and you're good at youth and I'm good at something else, you bring that to the party. And you bring that. Don't compete for the same thing. And that's the problem we've been having. We apply for the same grant and we compete with each other. Consortium building. If we build a consortium together and say, well, you know what, go to the donor and say, you know what, we all want to apply for this, but we all have different strengths. Can we not bring our strengths together and apply for that and maybe add a little bit more money to that pot? And then we can do this job and actually get it done, rather than you competing with you and me and all to do the same thing. So I think collective action is the way to go.
And also, we should not let anyone dictate anything to us. We should bring everything to our context. We listened to the minister from Uganda yesterday and we developed some goosebumps. Because he was saying something that is generating from the communities. So our programs cannot be one size fits all across the world. So what works in Botswana cannot work in Kenya, maybe cannot work in South Africa. So we need to look at all these things and bring everything to our context so that it addresses our issues rather than having to be, implementing something that is parallel to the values of our communities and the needs of our communities. That's what I think can work for us.
Thanks so much.
I wanted to add something to that about values and how, so as long as we have the same values, we can work together. And that should be what guides our partnerships as opposed to, because sometimes they're like, oh, I feel this way. But how do we believe in the same values? Because like you said, anti-rights are working because their one value is hate and it's easy for them. But if our other value is liberation, or whether it's love, how do we work together? Because I know that many people want to join us, but they feel like, oh, that space is too competitive. Like, oh, those people just only care about X, Y, Z, Because I feel like once we start looking at the values that unite us, we'll be able to bring more partners to the table for collective action.
Brilliant. I want to highlight 2 or 3 things that we just spoke about. So the decolonization aspect, we need to decolonize our own thinking about what resources look like. Human beings are resources, skill sets are resources, not only like money, not only financing, and to decolonize funding. Because funding has always been that way of like, there's a core and this and this and this is how it applies. But to actually now have that recognition that we add value, we have value that we bring to the table. And so we approach also financing from that perspective of like, we can also have a conversation about what funding looks like and have a conversation about what you're just talking about, Nami, to talk about, have a conversation about what does this intervention look like in our context. Because then we fall into that trap, and I think the UNAIDS country director for Botswana talked about it yesterday. We fall into that trap of like, there's a core and we just want to fit into that narrative and we don't challenge to say, but this does not really apply. How can we do this differently? So that decolonization of our own thinking about resources and decolonization of funding. And we can only do that if we're walking the journey together to say, you know, Oliver is doing this, and Kisa is doing that, and Bunya is over here doing this. And we think, we know when we approach our funders, we think that if we put all these pieces together, it will really answer the problems of the young people of Africa. So a really, really brilliant conversation, colleagues. I really I absolutely enjoyed it. I hope you watching have also enjoyed it. I would like to bring our conversation to a close. Maybe I'll just allow all of us to I figure it out. I got all the confidence in me.